Good evening, everyone. We're going to continue with our second course, and some more beverage and some more tea is headed your way. So please continue to enjoy, eat, and drink, and be merry, and talk, and all that good stuff until the program. We're actually getting ready to start the program, actually. I can barely see over this hat, so please forgive me. Not used to wearing them. I put it on today, and I was like, God, I look just like my mother. What's going on? But anyway, my name is Barbara Scales, and I am actually serving two hats today. First hat that I'm serving is I am one of the co-chairs for this amazing event this afternoon for AUW, along with Ann Cottrell, who you're going to meet shortly. But then I'm also the director for the June Anderson Center for Women and Non-Traditional Students here on this great campus at MTSU that I enjoy doing every day. So I want to welcome you on behalf of AUW to the Equali-TEA event. Look at your neighbor and say, welcome to the event. You know, AUW Murfreesboro, which stands for American Association of University Women, is an affiliate of the American Association of University Women, founded in 1881. And since 1913, this great organization of Murfreesboro has been leaving and leveling the playing field for women and girls in Middle Tennessee. The reason for this great occasion on this evening is kind of twofold, and we hope that you play a big part of that. First is for us to acknowledge that last week was Equal Pay Day, and it was on April the 4th. And actually, this day in 2017 is when women's earnings finally caught up with men's earnings in 2016. Isn't that amazing? Today's Equali-TEA recognizes the need for women's pay equality. And also, secondfold is this event is also to provide and support our female students on this campus, which hopefully you'll be able to support and help us with that on this evening. We also take this opportunity to recognize women and economic contributions to the workforce, and also to celebrate AUW Murfreesboro's long history of supporting women in education. I want to draw the attention to the audience. I know on your tables there was a theme, and the theme was Tennessee Women of Legacy, whom we celebrate. Each table had the opportunity to celebrate each woman there at that table. These are strong role models. As a matter of fact, I'm getting ready to bring to the stage another very strong role model that's going to welcome us on this afternoon. This woman is an epiphany of a strong woman, and Lady Elizabeth McPhee, we want to recognize her on this afternoon as well, and she'll be given the welcome here shortly. You know, when I received Lady McPhee's bio, I was amazed, so I'm going to read it to you. Elizabeth McPhee received her education at Prairie View A&M University, where she earned a Bachelor of Arts degree in education with a minor in art. Elizabeth has completed graduate work of Oklahoma State University and University of Louisville. Miss McPhee has taught in the public schools, get this, for more than 41 years, where she retired. Isn't that amazing? In 4 different states. Liz, as her friends fondly call her, is actively involved in the community. She's a member of Bel Air Church and Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Delta Kappa Gamma Sorority Incorporated. She has been a volunteer and has served on the MLK Board and the Cannon County Center for the Arts Board, the Domestic Violence Board, and the City School Foundation Board. She has sponsored an art camp from her home, and has been involved with the Alpha Kappa Alpha Teens program for teenage girls. Somebody say, whoo, she's busy. This role model and strong woman has been married to her husband, Dr. Sidney McPhee, and has been married for him over 36 years, and have 2 wonderful children, Sidney and Anthony McPhee, and Seneca Ann McPhee. I want you to welcome to the stage now, with a round of applause, our very own Lady McPhee.
Welcome to my house. every inch of Middle Tennessee State University. I welcome you to a rich past and an even brighter future. As I look around the room, I must say, you all look beautiful and so handsome. Now, I see you smiling, but I'm not talking about your out appearance. I'm talking about your insides. As I welcome you, let me tell you what I see. I see your hearts full of love and compassion. I see your mind full of can-dos, will-dos, and oh, yes, we can. I see your hands ready to lift us up to a higher place, give thanks for what we have accomplished, and grasp new ways we can make this year even better than last year. And finally, I see you putting your hands in the master hand who has already welcomed you to a new day. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you, Lady McPhee, for having us at your house. At this time, I want to recognize several important, and not that everyone is not important, but some other people in the audience that we need to give applause to. So I want all of our public officials in the audience, if you're here, we would like to recognize you. Can you please stand so we can recognize you with a round of applause? Any public officials? Okay. All right. And then we have, of course, I know that we have here, is asking our MTSU VIPs to stand, and that is anyone at table 1. Please stand, all our VIPs at table 1. Thank you so much. And then on the back of your program, we could not have done this special event without having so many sponsors. And so if you are any of our sponsors on the back of your program, if our sponsors could please stand up at this time, we would like to recognize all of our sponsors who helped us with this event at this time. Thank you so much. At this time, we're going to head to our speaker, and we're really excited to have our speaker come, but I'm not going to do the introduction for this phenomenal woman. Our very own Bethany Jackson will be doing that. And Bethany Jackson is the current holder of the AUW Murfreesboro Ruth Memorial, Houston Memorial Undergraduate Scholarship. She's a senior at MTSU, majoring in education. She will be graduating in May. In August, she will start her teaching career at Blackman Middle School, where she's going to continue to give back, and where she'll be teaching 6th grade math. Bethany Jackson.
Hello. It's nice to be back. I see some familiar faces from last year's fundraiser for the scholarship. We had Songs for Scholarships. That was a very memorable night and fun for everyone, but it was especially a very special night for me because I got to share my story, which was very personal for those of you that were there. But today I'm not sharing my story. I get to introduce a very distinguished speaker to talk on the topic about this Equal Pay Day. Rebecca Price is founder and CEO of Chick History. She's a historian and museum professional with more than 15 years of experience in nonprofit programming, administration, strategic communications, and marketing. She believes that women's history is always overlooked, often watered down, and sometimes altogether edited out. So in 2010, she began a blog, and very quickly, the discovery and sharing of women's history became her passion and full pursuit. And that led to the founding of Chick History in 2015, a nonprofit dedicated to rebuilding history one story at a time by focusing on women's history, original programming, and community outreach. She's worked at the Institute of Museum and Library Services, the National Museum of Women in the Arts, and several historic homes and museums. She currently serves on the board of the Tennessee Association of Museums, as founding co-chair of the Women's History Affinity Group at the American Association for State and Local History, and is a member of the Women's Heritage Trails Committee for the National Collaborative for Women's Historic Sites. So please welcome me in joining Ms. Price to the stage now.
Thank you, Bethany. I feel very busy now after that bio. Missing is my 5-year-old son that takes up most of my time. Well, I just want to first extend a thank you to Barbara Scales, MTSU, and the AUW Murfreesboro chapter for extending this gracious invitation to be here today. I'm excited and honored to be among you and speak about the history of equal pay and women's professional work. As I'm sure all of you here know, the fight for equal pay for women is not a modern-day crusade, nor one that emerged from the women's liberation movement of the 1960s and 70s. It's a cause that women and men have been fighting for centuries, and its roots lie in society's view and opinion on what is women's work and how women are valued. One of the things that's tricky about history is reconstructing when things started. We must always remember that the year a bill is passed or the day of a famous event, that contains a built-in period leading up to that event where things are happening, ideas are being shared, people are doing things, and history is unfolding. Claudia Golden, in her book, Understanding the Gender Gap, An Economic History of American Women, notes that as early as 1850, economists were formally measuring the wage rate of women compared to men and found it to be 50%. And sure enough, we have some unhappy women. 2 years before that, at the tender age of 14 or 15, we don't know the exact year she was born, Charlotte Woodward Pierce was attending the 1848 Seneca Falls Convention, the Women's Right Convention in New York. She recollected that period in her life and said, "I do not believe there was any community anywhere in which the souls of some women were not beating their wings in rebellion. Every fiber of my being rebelled, although silently, for all the hours that I sat and sewed gloves for a miserable pittance, which after it was earned could never be mine. I wanted to work, but I wanted to choose my task, and I wanted to collect my wages." Charlotte Woodward Pierce was one of the 100 people to sign the Declaration of Sentiments at Seneca Falls, which had more signers than the famous document upon which it was modeled, the Declaration of Independence, with its mere 56 signers. And I'm sure that there's a reverse equal pay joke in there somewhere. This famous document, the Declaration of Sentiments, outlined 11 injustices against women. Among the grievances related to voting and the elective process, divorce and property laws, participation in church life. It also includes 4 resolutions related specifically to earning money and professional advancement for women. And they read as follows, in no particular order. He has, capital he has taken from her all right and property, even to the wages she earns. Number 2, he has monopolized nearly all the profitable employments, all of the careers where you can make profit, and from those that she is permitted to follow, she receives but a scanty remuneration. He closes against her all the avenues to wealth and distinction, which he considers most honorable to himself. As a teacher of theology, medicine, or law, she is not known. And finally, he has denied her the facilities for obtaining a thorough education, all colleges being closed against her. And I think these 4 sentiments are so crucial because it shows this from the very beginnings, from the very rumblings, women see that connection between earning their wages and education. access to education, and that those go hand in hand. So one of the first attempts at a national union that was going to address equal pay, among other things, was something called the National Labor Union, formed in the late 1860s after the Civil War. It didn't last very long, and one of its weaknesses was the half-hearted support it gave to working African Americans and to women, as illustrated by its treatment of one of the most famous women at the time, Susan B. Anthony. Best known for her suffrage efforts, Susan B. Anthony was also an ardent labor activist. In her publication, The Revolution, which you can see right there, she advocated for an 8-hour day and equal pay for equal work. She also promoted a policy of purchasing American-made goods. So in her publishing of The Revolution in New York, where she was based, this brought her into contact with women in the printing trades. And so Anthony encouraged working women from the printing trades and the sewing trades, who were excluded from men's trade unions, to start forming their own working women's associations. Because we must always keep in mind the incredibly sex-segregated society we're living in during this time. So as a delegate to the National Labor Union meeting in 1868, Anthony persuaded the Committee on Female Labor to call for a vote for women and equal pay for equal work. The men at the conference deleted the reference to the vote from the minutes. The following year in New York, when printers went on strike, she urged employees to hire women instead, believing that this would show how they could do the job just as well as men, and therefore deserved equal pay. At the following 1869 National Labor Union meeting, the Men's Typographical Union would have none of this. They accused her of strike breaking, accused her of running a non-union shop where she published her journal, The Revolution, and they branded her an enemy of labor. I tell you that Susan B. Anthony really knows how to make friends everywhere she goes in her work. But don't worry, the National Labor Union was never able to create a long-term sustainable business model, and it dissolved in 1873 after only 7 years in existence. Their only real contribution was getting further past an 8-hour workday for workers. So even though a national group that's going to try to work and advocate in the needs of all working people, including working women in equal pay, had not yet taken root by this time, there were other small battles in the war for equal pay that were being fought and that were being won. This is a copy of an editorial sent to the New York Times in February of 1869. It's a letter to the editor. Written by a woman, questioning why female government employees are not paid the same as male employees. And the author points out that the US government employs 500 women in the Treasury, but they made only half as much as their male counterparts. She also points out that these women have families to support, and the majority of these women are single mothers, they're widows, or orphans made by the Civil War. And we see here the same discussion that we still have over 150 years ago about who is the hardest affected by the wage gap. Single mothers, working mothers, women who don't have access to higher education where they can enter into higher paying professions. It's the same conversation 150 years ago that it is today. There are a couple of minor victories that we see in 1869 and 1872. In 1872, the federal government passed one of its measures addressing equal pay, maybe one of its first. And this was an appropriations bill, and it provided for gender pay equality for federal employees working in the government. But it only affected federal employees, not state or local government, and not the private sector, which is crucial because this is a time period where the private sector is still the majority of employers in America. We don't have that government boom jobs that the World War I, World War II, the New Deal will bring out. So it's really the private sector that is holding all the money and creating this wage gap between women and men. This is a clip also from the New York Times of a minor success in New York State for teachers. It was a bill passed in 1891 establishing equal pay for teachers, and it's known as the Grady Bill. So teaching in any form was an ideal career for a young independent woman who did not want to go into the service industry or the manufacturing world. And one famous teacher turned activist was Ida B. Wells. I often say that being a teacher during this time period, teaching is the gateway career into activism. Most of the famous activists coming out during this period start as teachers, and Ida B. Wells is no exception. Obviously known for her anti-lynching work, investigative journalism, African-American civil rights work, Ida B. Wells would continue to advocate for equal pay for African-American women throughout her career as she became a national figure during the Reformation period. So Ida B. Wells moves to Memphis, Tennessee from Mississippi in the 1880s. So women make lower than men, women of color make lower than white women. As a teacher in Mississippi, she was making $30 to a white teacher's $80. In Memphis, in the 1870s, a very progressive woman spearheaded a resolution to equalize pay for teachers, to equalize the pay of women. So all women, black women and white women, were to make the same amount and the same amount as men. So Ida B. Wells knows this, and she knows she can make more money in Memphis as a teacher, and she does so when she moves. However, the resolution has an unintended consequence in Memphis. They equalize the black women and white women's salary. But in order to equalize the men's salary, they lower men's salaries down to the salaries of women. And this actually causes many men who were in that profession in primary education to leave the field. And these little snippets like this in history always have me wondering, that intersection between votes and enfranchisement and political activity, because, for these elected officials, nothing screams, I want your vote more than I'm going to lower your wages. So I wonder how far some of these people stayed in office. But that fear that raising women's salaries would actually lower men's salaries was a real concern at the time and was very widespread, and was one of the arguments against equal pay, and based on what Memphis did, justified. And in fact, here is an advertisement from 1924, so 50 years after Memphis did what Memphis did, men teachers are still scared about this. This is from Boston, and they're trying to get an equal pay law passed in for teachers. And it urges to vote no for equal pay, because not only would it lower the salary of men and married men, but it was the double threat that now women might start teaching boys in Boston schools. So things start to change a little bit once we get to the 20th century. We have World War I, we have World War II, and we start to see this noticeable difference in women in the workforce. These are very famous images from women entering the workforces, and just to point out, the bottom one and then the top one of a Rosie the Riveter, those are Tennessee women. That's Oak Ridge in the Secret City, and that's a Tennessee women working at an ammunition factory. So we see women seize the opportunity to move publicly into these professions. We see women becoming pilots, scientists, getting degrees. They're craving what they have been denied for so long, and it can never be emphasized, the avalanche of women who rush into these opportunities, women of all races and all walks of life. It's not just single women who are after these jobs. All women are desperate to get jobs, to learn a trade, to become financially independent. So we have these great opportunities in the 1900s to get jobs, but there's a lot of standstill about the protections of these jobs. With the 2 world wars and all kinds of other labor issues, child labor law, that still really hasn't been addressed yet in any satisfactory way. We still have hazardous working conditions, toxic work environments, That still hasn't been addressed in any real way. Equal pay is on this long, long, long laundry list of how the working class is exploited in America. A perfect example of this comes from a strike in Elizabethtown, Tennessee in 1929. This was a plant that was marketed as artificial silk, but it's rayon. And it was a strike that was led by disgruntled and underpaid women. It was not organized, there was not a union there, but there was a fever in the air. And the women of the plant were tired of the low wages, unfair promotion practices, and discriminatory regulations applied only to the female employees. Margaret Brown was a supervisor who, one, didn't receive the salary she was promised when she was hired, and two, was subsequently demoted when she asked for a raise. So she led an impromptu walkout one day of all the women in her division. That led to, over the next 3 days, as shifts ended, more people joined the strike, men and women, from this plant and its sister plant, to where the two plants had shut down in production. Eventually, the National Guard was brought down to control order in the city, and the strike lasted on and off for a couple of months before it ended. So in addition to the working conditions, this is also a period where we see what we call the company town. Corporations would move into the areas, they would be the only source of employment, and they would own everything in what is a pop-up town: housing, schools, and transportation. And I want to show you a picture of what was the company town, the housing, for all of the employees working in Elizabethtown at these two factories. And I show you this picture because it really drives home the point of what equal pay really is. It's not just about the bottom line of your paycheck. It is about the life you're able to lead. It is about your home, your food, your shelter, educating your children. It's about the lifestyle. And when this is your lifestyle and all you can have, this is why that pay is so important and why that education is so important. So the Elizabethtown strikes are not considered a complete success. Some of the demands were met. A union was never formally recognized. And they had troubles in subsequent years, but this gives you an idea of what we're starting to see happening in America. All of these local grassroots strikes are popping up all over the country, most of them led by women trying to earn a decent living for their work. So as we're entering the 1930s, it's been a while, and there's lots of struggles. But we finally start to see someone emerge on the national level, a champion for women's rights, a champion for human and civil rights, someone who has access to power in a way nobody else has had power to before. We have some great activists and leaders, but they don't have power the way she does. And we finally find our champion in Eleanor Roosevelt. From the very early stages of her career, she was always interested in working women, equal pay, and the rights of children and the rights of working class America. And it's really through her and her work that FDR is introduced to working America and becomes the staple of his 4-term administration and the New Deal, which she had a heavy hand in shaping, crafting, and promoting. By the time she becomes First Lady in the 30s, she has a press conference and she takes this efforts to the White House. And in a very early press conference in 1933, she declares, "Only where they are organized do women get equal pay for equal work." In 1946, Eleanor Roosevelt accepts President Truman's offer to become a U.S. delegate to the United Nations, and now she can take her fight to the international stage. In 1948, the UN, 2 years later after she's appointed, they begin work on the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. One of the articles will address equal pay, and she is on the committee. And there's much debate and compromise and negotiations, but the final consensus, because they needed something strong and inclusive, the final wording is everyone without any discrimination has the right to equal pay for equal work. Eleanor Roosevelt would then later go on to serve on President John F. Kennedy's Presidential Commission on the Status of Women, and much research, data, and recommendations came out of this commission, including what would finally be the first federal sweeping law addressing equal pay, the Equal Pay Act of 1963. And this is a photo of John F. Kennedy signing it into law on June 10th, 1963, surrounded by members and representatives from the American Association of University Women. So we all know there's still a long ways to go. We know that that gap hasn't closed all the way. So where are we today? According to this infographic that AAUW released in 2015, here is our current situation as of 2015. The wage gap has slightly improved since that 1850 record of 50%, but we are no way there to 100%. And then when you see it crossed out, put down the spectrum via race, you see the spectrum. You see at the top, Asian American women can make 85%, and down at the lower end, 54% Hispanic American women. So when you break that down, you see it's very different across race what women earn for equal work. So many believe this is still due to overt discrimination, political positioning, differing views on the role of women in the workplace, job selection, time in the workforce, etc. Author Bridget O'Farrell notes that a second reason is the continuing notion that she calls occupational segregation. And this is where work traditionally associated with women is undervalued despite their education or skill requirements to hold that job. Nurse versus doctor. Dental hygienist versus dentist, right? So obviously this calls for policies and laws to help overcome these barriers. But it calls for something even bigger than that. It calls for us to reevaluate and revalue the work done by women. And this is why preserving and promoting women's history is important. When we leave out the contribution or the presence of a woman, then we are not giving the full account of history. Women's voices, experiences, and stories remain underrepresented in our collective narrative. And this has a direct impact on women's position in today's society. This is the guiding principle on which I founded Chick History in 2015. And equal pay is the perfect example of how the historical erasure of women affects us in modern times. In 2012, Chick History did a project called the Her Story podcast, in which we invited 50 contemporary women to share the story of the historical woman who inspired them. Christy Jones, the Vice President of Membership and Direct Response Marketing at AAUW, was one of the women who participated, along with Gloria Blackwell and Lisa Matz. They also did an episode. Christy Jones had a very creative take on the idea and chose to talk about anonymous and a conversation on women being written out of their creation or their participation in something, most notably through the arts, literature, and the sciences. For example, many women artists painted under their father's names or in their father's studios. They are blocked from the professional trades. They can't enter into contracts. They do the work, but they don't receive credit. Many authors would not get published using a woman's name, so they use their initials, or they write under a pen name, George Eliot. Even Charlotte Bronte, before she became famous, was publishing under a man's name. And of course, this has a huge effect that we are only just beginning to scratch the surface when it comes to women in the sciences. There are volumes of scientific papers written by women that were never taken seriously because a woman wrote it. So many great women scientists have been forgotten because they had to use initials or a man's name to get published. Or they contributed to the experiment and the man received the sole credit. And I'm hoping that everybody here has seen this fabulous film, which illustrates that point to a T. And if you've seen the movie, you remember that scene where she's feverishly writing daily reports to improve the experiments. And she puts her name on the document and it's written out. It's that simple. That's how women can get written out of history. It really is that simple. So at the time of the recording that I made with Christy Jones in 2012, the Paycheck Fairness Act bill was going through Congress that ultimately did not pass. And we discussed that by women not receiving credit for their achievements for so long, it has influenced our opinion of women's professionalism and their credibility. We have perceptions about women and women's history that is very limited in experience and historical accuracy. And that influences the argument for equal pay. The historical perception that women don't have a long history of professionalism or professional contribution creates a bias. So we really do need to reevaluate work done by women. Most importantly, we need to recognize that women have been doing professional work for a long time and never receiving credit for it. They're hidden. And so that's why it's crucial to show that long history of working women, their participation in society, and to understand that the fight for professional advancement and financial independence is not a battle of the 21st century. Women have been fighting for recognition for centuries, and AAUW's work continues that tradition into modern times. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Let's give Rebecca Price another round of applause. Equality is quite the uncommon brew, isn't it? My name is Dia Cirillo, and I'm the president of AAUW Murfreesboro. What is the Tempest Award? The Tempest Award came into being at an AAUW committee meeting. We talked about how there should be an award for a public figure who advances equity for women and girls, someone in particular who had worked on equal pay. Like Athena to Zeus, the name of the award sprang out of the discussion, the Tempest Award. Why Tempest? There is an old saying, a tempest in a teapot, which expresses concern over a trivial matter. Here, however, we use the saying ironically, for taking action on equal pay is the true tempest. Rebecca Price illustrated this for us just now. It is truly groundbreaking work to work on equal pay because today, here in Tennessee, 70% of all women work, factoring in all seasonal employment. However, on average, Tennessee women only earn 20% less than men. We also recognize that a public figure who takes a position on an issue like equal pay is courageous. Again, we were reminded by Rebecca Price how courageous you can be to work on this issue. So when the committee started to talk about honorees, the choice was obvious, Tommy Bragg. A few years ago, the branch, together with AAUW of Tennessee, embarked on an effort to address the pay gap that women experience. The data is still very compelling. Even women nurses experience a 10% pay gap compared to male nurses. Recent college grads step right into a 7% pay gap, even when factoring in every conceivable variable, including major, school, GPA, and occupation. Yet, when discussing solutions to closing the pay gap, supporters and advocates among public figures are hard to find. So, we started out seeking municipal proclamations. AAUW Murfreesboro sought out the then Mayor Tommy Bragg of Murfreesboro. Would he issue a proclamation? The proclamation carried a radical notion: base pay on qualifications, such as seniority. And it also carried another principle, which is the removal of the gag rule to allow employees to discuss pay with colleagues without punishment by employers. When asked if he would run the proclamation, Mayor Bragg said yes, without equivocation. Tommy Bragg viewed the issue of the pay gap judiciously and with an eye towards how ubiquitous the role of women is in the workforce. His judicious stewardship of a government office is exemplary and courageous. There are two important birthdays this week. Tomorrow is Jeannie Bragg's, so hopefully she'll like the award. The other great American whose birthday is on Thursday said, "Timid men prefer the calm of despotism to the tempestuous sea of liberty." That's our other friend, Thomas Jefferson. On behalf of AAUW Murfreesboro, I'd like to invite Tommy Bragg to the stage to accept the inaugural Tempest Award, an award to honor those who have addressed systemic barriers to advancing equity for women and girls.
Thank you.
Photo on aluminum, which was produced and created by our branch member, Lane Bratcher Cantrell, and it is entitled "Toward Manchester."
Great. Well, thank you. It is a wonderful honor that you present me, and I, after this history lesson, am certainly glad that I am living today and not in those earlier times when things were not quite as good as they are today. I understand that we have a long way to go, but I want to thank the MTSU chapter of AAUW, all of your members for this high award, and I would say also that Dia, working with you has been a pleasure, and Ms. Scales, and having you lead this event today has certainly been wonderful. I know each and every one of us now are on notice, as our current president says. You are on notice that we need to work toward equal pay, and I certainly hope he does the same. I do want to say one thing. It's a pleasure to be able to be recognized, certainly, but I have had a wonderful partner in my life who has trained me and pushed me and pulled me. And so I want to thank my wife, who, again, her birthday is tomorrow, but I thank Jeannie Bragg for all that she has done. For all of you who are here as we go out into the world, remember you're not alone, that we can work together to make this happen. There are governments in this world today who are almost to the point of requiring employers to push equal pay to the fore and report on it, and so that we know that it is being done. So I do appreciate this award. I thank you all for having me, and certainly we are so proud in Murfreesboro to have Middle Tennessee State University and the AAUW be such a warm and wonderful, progressive part of our community. Thank you all.
Good evening. My name is Barbara Ann Cantrell, and I am co-chairing this event with the other Barbara Ann Scales that you met earlier and whom I admire greatly. It was wonderful working with you. Now it's time to turn our attention to the AAUW of Murfreesboro scholarships. Our branch is celebrating 50 years of giving scholarships to undergraduate women attending MTSU. Our first scholarship was awarded in 1965 to Linda Jo Myers, who graduated in 1969 with a bachelor's in international relations. Since then, we have awarded 26 scholarships, often supporting the student several years until her graduation. In 1983, the scholarship was named in honor of Ruth McNabb Houston, who had been a branch president. Now we would like you to meet 5 of our former Ruth Houston scholars.
My name is Cynthia, or Cindy Malay-Trail, and I live in a small town named St. John's, Arizona. As a non-traditional student, I graduated summa cum laude from MTSU with my bachelor's degree in May of 1998. My major was sociology, with minors in psychology and English. I continued my education at MTSU the following fall and graduated at the age of 51, summa cum laude, with a Master of Arts degree in sociology in May of 2001. I was blessed to receive AAUW scholarships throughout the majority of my undergraduate years, having only a high school diploma awarded in 1966, and as a mother of 7 children, with some of them also in college at the time, the scholarships provided me with the opportunity to devote all of my time to studies and family without having to split my time with outside workplace responsibilities. Without the scholarships, I would have had to elongate my completion and subsequent graduation by several years. Clearly, my focus on family and studies would have been hampered by without the funding that the greatly appreciated scholarships provided. Additionally, there is an almost unsurmountable fear factor that accompanies engaging in something outside of one's comfort zone, and college was fairly intimidating from time to time. The association I had with AAUW women at meetings and in between times helped buoy me up and to realize that I could succeed at a lifetime dream, become educated, and give back to others in my community just as AAUW had graciously given to me through their support and companionship. Since receiving my degrees, I have been a regional director for a countywide sex offender program involving educated, developmentally delayed adult male sex offenders in Washington State, served a 2-year church mission on the White Mountain Apache Indian Reservation in Arizona, where I engaged in family services and counseling in the areas of domestic violence, drug addiction, and sexual deviance, been an adult probation officer for Apache County, Arizona, an investigator and case manager for Department of Child Services, or CPS, taught several college classes at community colleges in the evenings, and am currently a child development assessment specialist at a healthcare clinic, working with children and their families. Clearly, all of these positions are as a result of love of family, devotion to helping others, and the AAUW influence in my life at the onset of my academic years. I have fulfilled a lifelong dream. I have been giving back to the communities I have lived in over the past 2 decades, helping to improve others' lives just as the women of AAUW faithfully helped improve my life at a time I needed it most. Words escape me sufficient enough to express my deepest heartfelt appreciation to the women of the AAUW who are the difference so many women need in their lives on their quest towards improving themselves and, in reality, the world in which they live.
Hi, my name is Jessica Morrison. I'm an editor at a science magazine called Chemical and Engineering News. It's the member magazine of the American Chemical Society. I live in Washington, D.C. with my husband Brandon, who's also an MT alum. I came to MTSU in 2004 as a first generation college student. I started out as a journalism major, but in 2005, which is around the same time that I received an AAUW scholarship, I decided to switch my major to geology. The scholarship meant that I had the opportunity to make that choice. I graduated from MTSU in 2007 with a degree in geology. I then went on to the University of Notre Dame, where I earned a PhD in geochemistry. Now I'm a journalist working at a science magazine. Thanks, AAUW.
My name is Virginia Lucas. Although my roots are in Middle Tennessee, specifically in Lebanon, I am currently living in Las Vegas, Nevada, where I'm a full-time graduate student pursuing my PhD in anthropology and archaeology. I first attended MTSU in the year 2000, but had to take a break in order to help care for my grandmother. I went back to school in the spring of 2010. I was an anthropology major and graduated in the spring of 2012. I received the AAUW Murfreesboro Ruth Houston Scholarship in the spring of 2011. Receiving the scholarship allowed me to pursue my education without having to put many hours into an outside job. Because of this, I was able to really focus on my chosen subdisciplines in zooarchaeology and bioarchaeology. Due to this focus, I was able to get into a master's program, co-directive field school in Transylvania, Romania, and ultimately get into the very competitive PhD program at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. I'm very grateful to AAUW Murfreesboro for its support.
My name is Kanwal Qureshi, and I am an international student from Pakistan. I came to the U.S. thinking I was only going to do my bachelor's, but my thirst for knowledge got me to graduate school. I am now living in Memphis and completing my master's in clinical nutrition and dietetic internship at the University of Memphis. After this, I can take my registration exam and become a registered dietitian. My family is still back in Pakistan, where my sister has completed dental school. My younger sister is completing a bachelor's in business administration, and my younger brother is ready to graduate high school and start medical school. I was awarded the AAUW Ruth Houston Memorial Scholarship in 2014 when I was in my senior year at MTSU, completing my bachelor's in nutrition and food science. The scholarship helped me to take care of my increased costs for the experiential learning aspect of my classes, as I had to get my own car and car insurance in order to visit different sites off campus. With the burden on my dad to pay my tuition, which was already 2 to 3 times the tuition of in-state students, I didn't want the cost of my car and other needs as a senior to burden him further. Getting this scholarship enabled me to take care of these costs myself and motivated me to succeed. AAUW showed me support at a time when no other scholarships were available for international students. Furthermore, the publishing of this achievement in Murfreesboro's daily news journal was the cherry on top. It made me extremely happy to see my parents so proud. As they said, sending me so far away and paying so much for my education seemed to be paying off. Thank you, AAUW, for supporting me and my needs at a time no other organization was, and for believing in my capabilities. I am truly honored to have been a recipient of your scholarship, and I hope I can do something similar for others as I become a professional myself in the near future. Thank you.
My name is Bethany Jackson. I live here in Murfreesboro with my 6-year-old son. I'm currently attending MTSU, but I will graduate on May 6th. I'm an education major, so right now I'm student teaching, but in August when school starts back, you'll be able to find me at Blackman Middle School, where I'll be teaching 6th grade math. I received the Ruth Houston Memorial Scholarship 2 years ago, and it's just been a huge blessing. It came at a time when I was going through a divorce, and I was becoming a single mom, and I was worried about how I was going to provide for us and still continue my education. And the scholarship has enabled me to not have to give that up. So I'm greatly looking forward to graduation, and the scholarship has definitely helped get me to that point.
To continue AAUW of Murfreesboro's longstanding commitment to the education of women. Beginning this year, the branch will award a new additional scholarship, the Butler Fouts Memorial Graduate Scholarship. The new graduate scholarship will target underrepresented women and is named in honor of Maddie Rabun Butler and Leola Page Fouts, who were active members of the branch well into their 90s. Career women and mothers, Maddie and Leola had much in common. Both were educators, and both were devoted to the mission of AAUW. You will find brief biographies for them in your program. What you won't find in the program are these memories of them. After each branch meeting I conducted, while others hurried home to be with their families, Maddie stayed behind to help me clean up and to make sure that I wasn't left alone in a dark, empty room. Then Maddie would walk me to my car to say goodnight in her soft-spoken way. "See you next time, Dr. Cantrell." No matter how many times I asked Maddie to call me Ann, she never would. Leola, on the other hand, was far from soft-spoken. Leola had opinions about most things, and she was very happy to share those with you. An opinion she shared most often at branch meetings was, "We need more members from the community. AAUW is just not for teachers." You were right, Leola. AAUW is not just for teachers. The branch honors these two women with our new Butler Fouts Memorial Graduate Scholarship. And members of the Butler Fouts family are with us this evening. Would you stand and be recognized? You had wonderful mothers. Now I would like to ask the chair of the AAUW Murfreesboro Scholarship Committee, Dr. Youngling Chow, to come to the stage to make our 2017-2018 scholarship awards. Dr. Chow is a history professor at MTSU and former president of the AAUW of Murfreesboro.
The scholarship committee was very impressed with the applications that we received, and there were some very difficult decisions to make. But I'm happy to report that we were able to select our recipients for this year, and I would like to invite them to join me on stage now. I am delighted, to present Claylee Cotto Peacock with our 2017-2018 Ruth Houston Undergraduate Memorial Scholarship. Claylee is, an undergraduate student majoring in anthropology, and she would like to say a few words.
The road that led me to standing before you today has not been an easy one. Along the way, I have lost loved ones, suffered trauma, and battled severe mental illness. All of these factors left me a broken teenager with a less than successful first try at college. Long story short, I ended up as a college dropout with a 0 GPA and what I thought was going to be a very bleak future. However, life is almost never what we expect, and my tragic past was not the end that I thought it was. It was actually the beginning of a story I never thought I would have. Honestly, I did not think I would survive this long, let alone return to school. But here I stand, an adult student who juggles a full-time job with a full class load and still manages to get straight A's. But no one accomplishes anything alone. I would not be where I am today without the unending selflessness, love, and support of my husband and my father. They have been my light in the darkness, believing in me and cheering me on every step of the way. But there are many others who deserve my thanks as well. Being an adult female student has its own unique set of challenges, and it is easy to think that no one understands or recognizes the back-breaking effort it takes just to get by, let alone excel, when you're trying to do everything at once. While it may feel isolating at times, I know I am not alone. I know there are people who stand behind me, even though they barely know me. These people are incredibly generous, indescribably kind, and they understand the position in which I live every day. They understand that there are days when it all seems like too much, and they want to help. These people are the countless individuals who donate their funds and their time to helping adult female students succeed. They are all of you. And I want to tell you that your kindness, generosity, and support mean more to me than I could ever say. Thank you so much for all that you have done for me and for my family. I sought out the Ruth Houston Scholarship because I am constantly inspired by the community of people who support non-traditional female students. You are all here today because you believe in equality and giving people chances, and in never giving up fighting for what you believe in. Your tenacity encourages me to be a better person and to set an example for future generations, and to show others that even when the odds seem to be entirely stacked against you, success is achievable. I have many goals I wish to accomplish as an archaeologist. I want to preserve our collective past to help educate and inspire future generations. I want to make discoveries and unearth wonders. But most of all, I want to show others what this community has shown me time and time again. When you believe in yourself and work hard, others will believe in you too. Then anything is possible. But always remember those who helped you, because no one achieves anything alone. Thank you for helping me achieve my dreams, and thank you for continuing to help female students everywhere achieve theirs.
And now I would like to present to Kiara Crutchfield our very first Butler Fouts Graduate Memorial Scholarship.
Good afternoon, all. Humbly, I'm honored to be selected as the 2017-2018 recipient of the Butler Fouts Memorial Scholarship. I am grateful for the funds to be awarded to the Master of Business program I participate in. These funds will reduce my tuition costs, thus making my dreams of career advancement, financial stability, exemplary woman leader, and academic scholar become more than just dreams, but goals attained. Gaining a master's degree holds a special place in my heart. I come from a poverty, drug, and violence-stricken neighborhood. I only dreamed of making a difference in my surroundings by being the change I would like to see. Gaining education was always the navigation tool I envisioned that would uproot me from those circumstances. Only through my Lord and Savior, persistence, strong work ethic, and help of others have I been able to overcome obstacles and make beauty out of ashes. I sought out this scholarship because the American Association of University Women stands for Advancement for Women. This aligns with my personal goals and what I hope to achieve in community outreach programs. With my degree, I hope to demonstrate that investing in women to be strong, centered, educated women will transform families and homes. Thus, investing in women makes a powerful impact on the community and creates a better world. I personally want to thank my mentors who are here with me today. Please stand when I call your name. Laura Messick and Dawn Key. These two women have invested in me by giving financial support, spiritual guidance, love for my child and I, and invaluable wise counsel. Thank you. I am truly grateful. I also want to thank other sources of love and help from individuals who are not here, Santoya Crutchfield and Barbara Hargis. Lastly, I want to thank all the donors and the following sponsors for today's event: Middle Tennessee State University, SunTrust Bank, Deloitte Services, Ameriprise Financial, Foy Law Group, Olive Branch Church, AAUW Murfreesboro Branch, and Friends of. Thank you.
Congratulations to both of you. And finally, I would like to thank the committee, Marion Wilson and Jackie Eller, for all the hard work that you've all done. And also, a thank you to Rachel Schultz, who not only designed our poster, Rachel. She not only designed our flyer for us, but also cheerfully, happily solved any problems that we had with our computer. Okay, so thank you. Thank you all very much.
Well, that's really why we're all here this afternoon, and what class acts those two wonderful women are. And we wish them well, and we're here to support both Clellie Peacock and Kara Crutchfield, and we look forward to staying in touch and learning more from you. We are certainly delighted to have you all here today at Equali-TEA, our high tea, hats optional fundraising event for scholarships. Kara stole my thunder, but I still have to do that, which is to thank all of our very generous sponsors. We had 15 sponsors, and I'd like to thank Middle Tennessee State University, the June Anderson Center for Women and Non-Traditional Students, the MTSU President's Commission on the Status of Women, our anonymous donors, the Dr. Susan T. Andrews Family Practice Partners, the Foy Law Group, and SunTrust Bank, Margaret Scott, Deloitte, Ameriprise Financial, Sexton and Associates, Timmons Property, John and Leanne Carmack, Olive Branch Church, and Cultivate Co-working. Thank you all for making this such a successful evening. We'd also like to thank all the attendees here this evening. We have on the table some very fun favors. Please take them home with you. They're tea satchels. The next item is that we also have a door prize. We could not complete this evening without a door prize contributed by Shacklett's Photography in the amount of $450 for a portrait package. Tommy, will you pick a name from the hat? Drum roll, please. Elizabeth McPhee. Wonderful, congratulations. I have to say that the great thing about picking a name out of a hat is that it's always a surprise. Equali-TEA is a new way to celebrate the work of AAUW Murfreesboro as it continues a century-old tradition of removing barriers for women and girls to work and learn. We have benefited from an inspired event committee filled with accomplished women. I'd like to recognize our co-chairs of this event. Please stand when I call your name. Barbara Scales, Director, MTSU June S. Anderson Center for Women and Non-Traditional Students. Ann Cantrell, Professor Emerita of English. Please stay standing. I invite all of the event committee members to join them and stand. Please stand if you are on the event committee. Don't make me call your name out individually. We owe them a debt of gratitude. They illustrate all that is possible in our society today. They are today's women of legacy. Because of them, we partner with elected officials to secure equal pay protections. We always hope that these officials will be as judicious and exemplary as Murfreesboro's very own Tommy Bragg. We acknowledge our late members, Maddie Butler and Leola Fouts, who have made AAUW Murfreesboro the long-standing tradition that it is today. That's why we launched the Butler Fouts Memorial Graduate Scholarship. We celebrate the success of our first scholarship, the Ruth M. Houston Memorial Undergraduate Scholarship, with its 50th anniversary. We enjoy a thriving partnership with MTSU and the City of Murfreesboro and across the state with other AAUW affiliates and the state organization. We thank Dr. McPhee and Lady McPhee. We also thank, yes. We also greatly appreciate the support and partnership of the MTSU administrative team. Thank you. In order to fund, today we invite your contributions to support the Houston and Butler Fouts scholarships that will allow Kara Crutchfield and Clellie Peacock to pursue their degrees and dreams. In order to fund this year's scholarships, we recommend a donation of $50. Table captains, please distribute the donation cards at your table. Donations can be made by check. Electronic donations can be made at the tables in the back of the room. Lisa Bass and Rachel Schultz are over there, and they can help you out. I'd also like to recognize Dr. Mary Hofschwelle, who's Professor of History at MTSU and Director of MT Engage. Mary, will you stand just for a moment? Dr. Hofschwelle is the president of the new charitable arm of AAUW Murfreesboro. This organization is the Middle Tennessee Fund for Women and Girls. Your donations for scholarships to the fund are tax deductible. Thank you, Mary. We hope you will join AAUW Murfreesboro in its next century of work. I'd like to leave you with a quote from one of my favorite women of legacy, Diane Nash, who spoke at MTSU last year. And she said, "People are never the enemy. Issues and attitudes are. When you change yourself, the world has to fit up against the new you." Thank you.